け翼。
やっぱり真剣勝負は最高だね。
俺は自分の役目を果たす。
世界最高峰の守備を披露しよう。完璧な守備を披露してやる。
Welcome to another episode of Tsubasa. I'm your host, Cronocloud, and hot on the heels of the Roberto Hongo step-up transfer, we now have the Brazilian national team banner. This is the last major team banner before we hit the inevitable recap banner due in a couple of days. So, how did the Brazilians stack up against the Japanese and the Germans of the weeks prior? Let's find out together. Ike! Natureza, the rhythm that rules the pitch, is a skill-type Brazilian ace that can fit into your team as either an attacking midfielder or forward. We don't really like his passive, Rising Sun Player Killer, which grants him a 20% stat bonus against other Rising Sun players. This makes him a bit situational, especially once the club and other archetypes pick up again. Fortunately, Natureza does have a few things going for him. He comes with a high 4.5% bond, plenty of stamina coupled with stamina cost down, and a very useful main skill that completes his offensive options. This Natureza is not well balanced with his weaker dribble and extremely vulnerable tackling ability. He is given a 12.5% multiplier bonus for all his low and high ball actions, as both are stated as good. We suggest giving Natureza an attacking build and ignoring his defensive aspects to maximize what you can get out of him without boundary break. Speed is not much of a concern here, as Natureza should be able to get into the box easily with his 1-2 range enhance. As for skill forces, the rules are the same as before. Max limit break and best S-rank skill selected for your reference and convenience. Final thoughts. Natureza is a rather situational goal threat, since not all meta goalkeepers are from the Rising Sun arc, but a good player to counter Rising Sun defenders in general. He does come with a valuable 1-2 skill for your other Naturezas. Radunga, the true spirit of a fighter, is a skill-type Brazilian defensive leader that is given two playable positions, defender and defensive midfielder. He represents the Brazilian national team during the Rising Sun arc. Radunga offers very high bonds at 4.5% for his team, and one of the most desired abilities, Insight Master, 30%. Radunga doesn't come with a lot of physical stats, with both his speed and technique in the mid 5k range. But we are quite surprised by his unexpectedly decent offensive aspect. Radunga is stronger on block, but we suggest to balance out his defensive options, since he has Insight Master. The figures listed on the right of the parameter table is inclusive of the 30% Insight Master. Note that Radunga is good with high balls, so he gets a 12.5% bonus for all high ball actions. The same rules apply for his total skill force parameters as before. Final thoughts. Radunga does a decent job with Insight Master, with little chance of being bullied, while offering a nice 4.5% bond for his team. My guess is that most people pulling on the banner are shooting for this guy. Alberto, Blockade Marker, is a toughness-type Brazilian defender that represented the Brazilian Olympic team during the Rising Sun arc. Other than his interesting Inspired DF that grants all defenders plus 5% stats for their next action after he wins a matchup, we would like to highlight that that he is an interesting situational passive with will to win when superior, only active when his team is in the lead. Alberto initially seems quite strong on block and intercept, but is held back by low power and technique stats, so refrain from playing him as your center back, where those two mentioned areas matter the most. He is rather fast for a defender, coming in with over 6.8k speed. We suggest going with the side defender build, maxing out his tackle and intercept. Same old when it comes to all the skill forces. As you can see for yourself, Alberto only becomes somewhat of a bully with his tackle when his passive is active, but it's really common to see special moves over 80k nowadays. Final thoughts. With his situational passive and lackluster intercept and block, Alberto really doesn't cut it for the current meta. There are unfortunately better options out there. Salinas, up-and-coming custodian, is an agility type Brazilian goalkeeper that is part of the Brazilian Olympic team during the Rising Sun arc. He comes with two types of will to win. One grants 12% stat bonus when the game is tied, although as usual doesn't apply to the score being 0-0, and a 15% stat bonus when leading. Yet another situational player that starts the game with no buffs active. Salinas does have an extremely weak punch, but is strong with his catch, and as such, definitely not worth boundary breaking. His in-match parameters on the right include will to win 15%. Use a textbook catcher limit break for him. Total force-wise, his best catch tanks out at 84k, when none of his will to win is active, and that means he won't be able to stop most meta forwards. So, to make things less depressing, we include will to win 12% and 15% respectively to the total skill force. Final thoughts. We don't recommend starting Salinas, but he can be an asset to bring on in the second half if you are leading. He might not be the ideal starting goalkeeper, but that doesn't mean he can't have a spot on your team. One important thing to note is that he can't afford to have his best catch skill blocked, as his second best catch is rather weak, so we recommend loading him up with a couple of skills to prevent this from occurring. For a new segment I'd like to call Cronocloud's Corner. A lot of you may be looking at this banner and thinking, thank goodness I get to save my dream balls on this underwhelming banner. But in truth, these kinds of situational characters are exactly what the game needs to be interesting and fresh. High-end PvP is frankly stale, and if we only pull for characters who are broken, it sends the wrong message to the developers. I want more situational characters. I want to be incentivized to swap out players. I hope that KLab actually continues this trend and continues down the path of diversified and more varied PvP matches. Well, that's all for us this week. We've got the G2 banner coming up, and then I think it's gonna be SDF. Please consider supporting us on Patreon or YouTube. Links provided in the video description. Check out our other videos listed here. Since you're still hanging around, why not support by hitting the like button and subscribe? So, until next time, this is your host, Cronocloud, signing off. May the gacha gods bless your pulls, and I'll see you here next week. Ike!